Hey gents, this is something new I want to try. I listen to dozens of podcasts every week, and I don't think that you should listen to every single podcast in a specific series, but what I want to do is highlight a few specific episodes that I think are worth your time. As we always strive to be better gentlemen and better men in society, there are topics that podcasts cover that are a superior way of learning versus reading an article or seeking out the information in another source. This is something new I want to try on the channel. If you want to give a thumbs up or comment below on what you think of this episode, I'd really appreciate it. Of course, subscribe, share, and all that stuff to keep the channel growing, and I really appreciate the support you've given me so far. I've been listening to podcasts since 2008 when I first got my iPhone, and ever since then I've been hooked. I started off with technology podcasts because that was truly my passion when I was in college, and I've moved into other spaces now like finance, real estate, business, and many other topics. And I just have a few episodes from the month of August that I want to talk about that I really enjoyed and I think was worth your time. What I'm going to do is talk about the episode a little bit, some description here, and then I'll put a link in the description of this video to the exact episode so you can check that out, and if it piques your interest, then you can check out the rest of the episodes in the series. The first episode that I really liked in the month of August was from the TED Radio Hour. I'm not sure if this was an old episode, but it is the episode that features Astro Teller from the Google X project. The episode is called Failure is an Option, and it talks about the way that Google approaches projects and makes sure that, you know, if something's not working, they either kill it early or they figure out what they can do to improve it. And I think that's one thing that you can apply to anything in life. If you start a project and you figure out that it's not working in the beginning, don't keep rolling with it, and instead change course early instead of getting to the end and finding out that it's a big problem. So overall, I think the episode's very strong, but in the middle of the episode, there's a talk with Astro Teller, and some of the things that Google's investing in and the projects that they're working on are incredibly fascinating to me and to society as a whole. I mean, if they're talking about putting balloons in space in order to provide internet to rural areas in third world countries, that's things that you don't just see out of regular companies. So that episode in particular, I really liked. I also listened to a podcast called the Internet History Podcast, and it interviews people that were involved in the internet very early. You know, you're talking back in the 80s when they were still developing what is now known as the modern web. The episode in particular that I liked in the month of August was with Steven Sasson. He was responsible for creating the very first images that showed up on digital screens for Kodak. So think about this. Kodak today, you only know them as the former camera company and the company that does film for motion pictures. But they were actually the company that first developed digital cameras, and they let that slip by them. Steven Sasson in this episode talks about the very first time that he rendered an image on a TV screen, because back then there were no computer screens. What I found inspiring about this episode is that this guy was building these cameras and had this very entrepreneurial spirit back in the 70s. Before there were even computers that could generate or process graphics, this guy was trying to figure out how he could get images onto a screen. And it shows what can happen over years of trying and pushing and sticking to a goal, because eventually he did get the digital cameras built, and the technology is still used today, and it's what powers, you know, I'm using my iPad right now, I'm on the road. It's what powers all the devices we use today, and that's just an incredible accomplishment. Another podcast I subscribe to is The Art of Manliness. I think you should too. They do sometimes 2 to 3 episodes per week. The one that I really enjoyed in August was The Science of Loving the Place You Live. And I think about this a lot as I travel, because I am from Pittsburgh. I love the city there. Every time you travel to a new city, there's the thought that, you know, if you moved here, things would be so much better. Or if you lived in Europe, then this would be better. Or if you lived in a smaller city, then your rent would be cheaper. But what this episode is about is thinking differently about where you live, trying to find resources in the areas that you live, because what you might want out of a larger city, if you're looking for more activities, more nightlife, that type of thing, is you might not be looking in the right places in your own city to find that out, and you don't necessarily need to move in order to enjoy where you're living. So I've really found this discussion to be helpful, and even though I already have pride in my city today, then if it helps you to enjoy where you live a little bit more, that's something to be considerate of. When Serial was at its height of popularity, I was looking to eat up any sort of true crime, real life, investigative journalism on that type of story, and I was led to the show Criminal. The episode of Criminal that I really enjoyed in the month of August was called The Editor. The episode is about an inmate at a prison who did not have a formal education and could not read when he went into prison, but he bought a dictionary and began to read through the dictionary and teach himself language and reading and spelling. He started to notice that there were incorrect facts in encyclopedias when he was in prison, and he began to buy more encyclopedias, cross-reference facts, and he would send in the changes to the encyclopedia company, and he ended up becoming a ghost editor in this process. And it's a fascinating story about a guy who could not read, could not spell, taught himself, and then became one of the largest changers of facts in the encyclopedia. The encyclopedia went out of business, and it's a whole story, but the way that they tell the story and the story itself, I think, was very neat. The last episode that I thought you should take a look at is from a podcast called The Top with Nathan Latka. It is an interview with Nick Gray of Museum Hack. The episode is really about how you can take something you're passionate about or excited about and work towards accomplishing that goal. What this episode takes is Nick has this idea for taking people through museums in a better, kind of more curated tour style. He's building a business about taking people through museums with passionate and informed museum guides, and he works with the museums to provide these. He does one-off smaller group sessions, but then he also does private events and big things. But it's really about building a business on the back of something that you're excited about. He might not have complete passion in museums necessarily, but he's interested in business, finance, and building a business. And this was a great idea that he had. He's rolling with it. He originally stayed full-time at his job, but he's moved now into doing this full-time, and he's built a business out of providing great tours and informing people. I think that's something to be supportive of and to just look into, and if you have an idea, that's the way that you run with it. Now, each of these podcasts that I recommend, I subscribe to and listen to every single episode, but I don't always think that every episode is worth your time. If you like this format of the kind of podcast suggestion, I want to hear your feedback on it because I've been interested in doing this for a few months. I'm collecting right now my September recommendations, but keep in mind that I listen to dozens and dozens more podcasts in my feed, so I'll kind of rotate through the different subscriptions that I have depending on if I think the episode is worth your time. Also, I'm open to, if you have podcasts that you listen to and that you love and you think are worth my time, comment below or reach out to me at Twitter, because I'm always looking to expand what I'm listening to, especially if it kind of piques my interest. I love diving into there. Make sure you're signed up in the description below for my giveaways. I'm giving away a 1-hour professional virtual styling session, which is worth about $100, and I'm going to put a link to the video up top here where you can get some more of those details. Thanks for dealing with the goofy video quality this time. I'm on the road. I'm using my iPad. The sun is rising over here in New York. I actually have an incredible view of the Empire State Building, but I couldn't really frame the shot to capture that. I'll be back in my office this weekend. I got plenty more videos coming for you. And right now I'm wearing DSTLD jeans, and I know there's been quite a few requests for that company, so I will get to those. But until next time, gents, this is the Cavalier.